So this is the American Home Contractors podcast. We're here with Marcus Newby, one of the roof and gutter technicians with the company.
High, and it's intercepted by Newby. Marcus Newby down the sidelines. Marcus Newby gives Nebraska the lead.
Marcus Newby, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and just growing up, football career, moving into, where you are today?
I always been in Montgomery County.
Born and raised.
Born and raised. Grew up in Gaithersburg. Went to school at QO. I call it QO, Quinn Georgia High School. Graduated in 13 and then went to University of Nebraska. To continue my football career. Washed up now, but it was a great experiences. A lot of life lessons taught when I was there, and now I try to carry those principles into my day-to-day. So my football career actually started out in the backyard. I was playing football. I'm the youngest out of 5. Playing football with my older brothers, my brother's friends, and playing backyard, tackling, hitting each other in the creek, all crazy stuff. And, it made me – I didn't start playing organized football until I was, 7th grade? But from me playing backyard football with my older brother and their friends, it taught me toughness. And then once I started playing organized, now I got pads. So I already felt protected. And then it went from there. I started 7th grade. Actually, I had to play a weight class up due to we didn't have enough players to play at that pound I was at. So
Really?
I was playing with bigger guys.
And was this club, travel? What was this?
Travel. It was called Capital Beltway League.
Okay.
When I was, it's not. I think the league has closed now, but it was called Capital Beltway League. So we would travel all the way around the Beltway, play Baltimore teams, DC teams, PG County teams, Howard County teams. We would travel all around. You had playoffs. You had like a 9-game season. I think I'm trying to think back 15, 16 years ago. But I played that year. That year went well. Got some recognition. Came back the following year. Played for my weight class I was supposed to play the year before, and that was the year. Honestly, for football wise, I knew I had a chance. Right? It was. I think I always tell people when it comes to Little League football made me tough. Not high school, not college, because nowadays you can't do what they did back then. Like hitting drills, Oklahoma drills, because there's so much studies along the head now and I advise it myself, like play flag to start out, learn the techniques of the game, and then once we get to high school, once you get older enough, then we can, if you want to play tackle, go ahead and play tackle.
Were you guys wearing padding when you guys were doing the backyard football, or was it all?
Nah.
No?
Just, it's funny. It's funny how you say that. It was a T-shirt, your school T-shirt, and your jeans. The only reason I'm making a joke out of that because I used to come home all the time. I used to have grass stains on my jeans. My mom would just scream at me, "Marcus, I just bought you those jeans. You have grass stains all over them already." So, it was more so came home, did your homework real quick, if we did homework, but did your homework real quick, and then just ran outside. I mean, we played until the street lights came on. So that was, 7 days out of the week we did that, and back then I was a crybaby. I'm not, when I was, because your older brothers, they got their girlfriends around and all that. They're trying to, impress their girlfriends. You get hit hard. Those tears come out. Those mad tears come out. I used to run in my house, tell my mom. But fortunately, I'm thankful for my brothers because at the end of the day, it made me tough, right? Just from before even playing organized football, I was getting hit with no pads on. So I felt that more than I felt when I had pads on. So
Then you put the pads on.
Then I put the pads on, and So moving fast forward into going back to my last year in Little League. We had a good year. We actually won the championship with 13 players, because everybody quit. Everybody couldn't. We used to hit all the time. God rest his soul. My Coach John in Little League, he was, that's who made us tough. We used to do the board drill. We used to do Oklahomas on Wednesdays for hours straight. And, we ended up winning the state championship, or the championship, 13U.
And what's an Oklahoma? I don't know what an Oklahoma is.
Oklahoma is where there's two people. Obviously, say if it's me and you. I'm the ball carrier, and you got to tackle me. So you're constantly hitting each other.
Just
right?
one-on-one.
One-on-one. So it was, you do that for an hour and a half. You might have a couple of headaches. I tell people all the time, make a joke. Obviously you don't joke about CTE, but, Little League, you had CTE before CTE was even thought of. But, it was a good experience. Fortunate enough to, obviously, I had a couple coming out of my last year in Little League. I had a couple scholarships to play at DeMatha and Georgetown Prep, and ended up going to Quince Orchard because that was my home school, and we had people that was older than me that I looked up to at the time. And when you're young, you kind of want you want to look up. When you look up to somebody, like, I want to go there where he went, right? So and it all played out. I didn't go to my mom wanted me to go to private school for the education, but I ended up going to my home school, QL, and it worked out. So
And then when did you go to Nebraska?
So I graduated high school 2013. So I obviously graduated 13. I ended up at Nebraska in June, and then I played off. So I redshirted my freshman year at Nebraska and played up until 17. So that was my last year. But I tell people, especially I tell kids all the time, is high school versus college is completely different. For one, everybody's big as you, or everybody's better than you, or as good as you. You're not throwing around, 150-pound linemen in high school, right? When I first got to Nebraska, I was, like I said, I came to school a little late. I had to take a class to qualify for college. So I came to school, late before everybody, everybody was already in fall camp. I came 2 days before school even started. So everybody was already practicing. So I'm coming in, young, 17. At that time we probably had 3 NFL guys on the offensive line. So running plays, the speed of the plays, the playbook. It was, because you don't really have a playbook in high school. It's just you run a couple coverages and that's it. Where in college you have a playbook that's about this thick. So it was more so, learning the speed and adjusting to the strength. Everybody's stronger than you. The school, the campus, everything like that. So just getting adjusted. I'm happy I redshirted my freshman year because I was able to get adjusted and able to take time to learn everything, learn the school, learn the tutor aspect of it, learn the study hall, learn the weight training, right? That's completely different from when you was in high school or even before. So I tell guys all the time where it's redshirting is okay, right? Because you still have another year. You're not losing any eligibility. You still have 4 more years to play, and you got to be honest of where who you are, and if you're not equipped to play that year, or if it's the strength, or if you want to, because college can get overwhelming a little bit, with all that, all the new stuff that you had to get adjusted to. So I think redshirting was definitely great for me.
It's great for you.
For sure.
Recommend it for most people.
Recommend it to kids. Nowadays it's a whole different ball game with when it comes to kids getting recruited, right? Because social media is a lot bigger than it was, 10 plus years ago. I remember when I was in high school, a college coach can only message you on Facebook once a month, right?
That was a restriction?
That was a restriction. Like you couldn't call, you couldn't do this. You could call, but you only can call a certain amount of times a month, right? So
why was that?
The restrictions, the NCAA,
Really?
at that time. Obviously they come see you, your games, they come visit you.
So was that just a Facebook social media thing? Could they text you and do
Nah.
other forms of communication?
Well, they
or?
can, but it was more so like a lot of, like when I was in school and like people around my age, college coaches was, hey man, just checking in on you, just seeing how you're doing. Hope school's going great. Hope your season going good luck, right? It's just something simple. But more so like now it's, you got the videos. I mean, everything is posted everywhere, right? And then you got the NIL. So it's, kids can transfer within a year or so if they're not playing. Where for us, or when I was in school, is if you wanted to transfer, you had to sit out a year, right? Where now, if kids want to transfer, they can go to that school right away and play. So it's a completely different ball game when it comes to the transfer protocol and also NIL. Well, now they're paying the athletes now some money. So that wasn't like that when I was in school. We was getting $40. I remember we was getting $39 freshman year in the dorms because you get a football card, so they give you $39 a month. Where if you was at that time, you couldn't wait to move off campus because you got a bigger check. Because if you move off campus, you got to pay rent, right? So we got a bigger check, and then I think the end of my college, my senior year, obviously that number increased. So we were living a little better senior year compared to freshman year. So yeah, man, it's a whole different ball. To answer your question, it's a whole different ball game now when it comes to college athletes and the NIL, the transfer protocol, and how these coaches recruit. How these coaches can keep players. So it's a lot that goes into what it takes to recruit nowadays.
So what was your biggest lesson football taught you?
The biggest lesson football taught me: don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. And that's actually a great question because when I was in college, I had 2 head coaches, 3 defensive coordinators, and 2 position coaches. Where, as in, if I'm becoming a rising junior, and I'm comfortable, I'm there for 3 years, 4 years. I didn't pay my due, all that. If a new coach comes in and they're recruiting their players, they've recruited these players, so they like those players. And you can, like I said, it's all, you can't, regardless of that situation didn't happen, you can't get comfortable. Versus a first year player, versus me being a third year player, because at any given moment somebody can take your spot. And I always tell these kids now is when they go to college is always be prepared for the moment, right? If you're a second string linebacker, if you're a second string quarterback, running back, whatever, your time is going to come, right? Injuries happen in the game. Mm-hmm. And for me, and that was the question you asked, I was at that time I was prepared for the moment. I was second string. We had a linebacker get hurt, and we were going into Big Ten play. We were playing Wisconsin, and I was prepared for the moment. I knew what they were going to do that game. I knew they had a decent tight end, and I knew they were going to get the ball to him a lot on third down, and I came in a lot on third down to cover the running back man to man, cover him. So, and that game actually, before then, confidence was a little low, but once I played that game and made a few plays, I remember to this day, it was crazy. The first third down, I mean, Nebraska, 95,000 people every Saturday. So, I'm locked in to the point where, like, I'm tunnel vision, like, I'm blacked out to the point where crowds going, you know how it is on football, crowds going crazy on third down. And I'm not even hearing it. I know, he's a wide choice route. He's going off my leverage. I'm inside leverage. I know what he's doing. So he broke. I end up, should have had an interception. End up hitting the ball down, and the crowd goes crazy. But I got up, and I was like, yeah, I can play. So that was actually the game that gave me confidence, right?
Damn.
And to tell me, to say I can play with everybody else. Because, if you're making plays here and there, but, like, when you make a big play for the first couple of times, your confidence, your swagger goes up a little bit, right? So for me, that game was the game for me, where I knew that I had confidence to play. I can play in this league. And yeah, I kind of built that momentum moving forward into the season. So, but yeah, that was so to go back to your question is, don't get comfortable, right? Because your spot can get taken at any given moment, regardless if you're a senior, an incoming freshman coming in. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that can play in fact, factor in all that. New coaches, want to play their players, and so just come to work every day. Be hungry, right? I mean, at the end of the day is, if your linebacker room, everybody's cool, but at the end of the day, you're teaching one another, you're teaching each other, okay, what we did wrong, what can I do better on this? At the end of the day, it's all love, right? But you always, regardless of what you do, you always got to compete, right? Because they came to the school just, for the same reason you came to that school, right? To play, start, make big plays in the game, have a great future, and continue, your success in the NFL. That's always the goal. So, but the word for you is, the question you asked is, don't get comfortable.
Don't get comfortable.
Yeah.
Words to live by. All right, so transitioning into after college, after you played football, what did you do right after college?
Man, that's another good question. You played football all your life. You know what I mean? So that adjustment was hard, right, for me, and like especially hard to, tell your family that's been cheering you on, your nieces, your nephews, your cousins, mom, dad, grandma, your girlfriend, whatever it is, whatever the case may be. It was hard to. Takes about 6 months to a year, right, to adjust, and so that was hard. That transition was hard for me, but if I had a positive outlook on something, the fact that the game of football has taught me a lot. What I learned from the game of football, my mindset as I was going through this process is, I can translate all this into the real world, right? Because sports is the biggest, personally for me, sports is the biggest life lessons, you're going to learn, because you're going to get tested so many times. It can be in a game. It can be a 95-degree day. You're running conditioning, you're running 110s, whatever you're doing, right? So you're going to get tested, right? Adversity, so the game, just from not just the game, but just college, because you got so much responsibilities where you got to be disciplined. You're going to go through adversity, like I said, kind of like the question you just asked me before, you might lose your spot. How are you going to respond, right? What's the mindset on that? Like, how are you looking forward to, okay, I lost my spot to a sophomore, I'm a senior, what's the next step? How do I go about that, right? So for me, it's just, the transition was, I knew football was hard, right? And I knew that if I did that and got to the point where I was at, I can have this positive outlook where I can transition to the real world. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was still training a little bit, but then after that, I just kind of like, look, I'm done. I just want to close this chapter, open up a new chapter, and for me, I mean, a lot of guys can speak of it. A lot of guys can't. It was like a weight has been was lifted off my shoulders due to the fact because the game of football, it comes with so much stress,
So much pressure. It
so
sounds
much
like.
pressure, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of different things. Not the school part. If I was coming in at that time, I would have been a free agent. So it was more so like, if I get cut, if I'm back to square one, right? And I was coming off of an injury as well, a groin injury that I couldn't really recover from and be who I was before the injury. So thinking of all those things at that time was a stressor. So it was, and learning everything I knew from the game of football, I had a positive outlook on closing football chapter and going into the real world. You know what I mean? So it was more so, and I try to kids to the even kids like high school kids always have a plan B because NFL what it stands for, not for long, right? And some things may not work in your favor, right? Regardless of what it is, and always have principles and resources that you can use to think life after football.
Do most people realistically have a plan B though when they're going into football?
They don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Majority of them don't. I know a lot of people, that, fortunately, and it's hard because you play the game for 18 years. It's hard to adjust. And
do you think it was good to get, college education and, that experience to help you transition out of football?
Absolutely. 100%.
So set yourself up for a plan B, but you don't have to have it well defined. Just, know that you going through the experience of going to college, getting educated, learning time management, all those skill sets you learned will set you up for a plan B once
exactly.
you need that.
You hit the nail right on the head. And me and my boys from college have this conversation all the time. You have all these resources in college, right? You have life skills, but you're so tied in of what's going on within football, practice, study hall, tutor that you have at 5:30, what you're eating, things like that, lifting at 5:30 in the morning. So it's so much going on where you can't even think to use these resources. You know what I mean? Where you might have had a bad practice or something like that. You might have had a bad Tuesday, right? Where it's like that bad practice or that bad play you made in practice, you're constantly thinking about that one play, right? So it's you have these resources, but it could be you could have missed the game-winning tackle, right, in the game, and that game-winning tackle is stuck in your head. So it's like so much that's why I'm coming back where it's you can be overwhelmed with a lot of different things.
What'd you do mentally? Did you have like a therapist at the school to talk to about some of the stuff? Because I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure it messes with your mind, all that stress and pressure.
We did. We had doctors and everything like that. Like the resources was great. It was like I said, it was. When there's so much time being involved, and like I said, kind of those things I just talked about, it's hard to use those resources, I would say, and and like kind of going back to what you said, you got life skills, and you're so tied into something you've been doing your whole life, where you might have to come out and learn how to build a resume. Learn how to, okay, this is what I want to do now, right? And it might take a couple hiccups, right, until you find what you want to do.
And what'd
Right?
you land on?
I went to criminal justice. I majored in criminal justice, and I wanted to be a cop or whatnot, and or correctional officer at that time, and I was entering all that, and got to a point where I told myself, like, what is Marcus Newby good at, right? And for me, it's talking to people, right? Smiling at somebody, whatever, encouraging somebody, and just learning from somebody, listening to somebody. So once I found that, it was more so, okay, this is me, right? And I tell people all the time, and it's, I can't speak for every school, but you come in sophomore year, to ask you, what do you want to major in, right? At the end of the day, you're, how old was I sophomore year? 19 maybe? At the end of the day, you're a 19-year-old. I came here to play football, right? You're not really thinking like, okay, this is what I want to do. So once I was done with that, I was able to process that and learn this is for me, right? Kind of what I just said, talking to people, learning from people, just speaking different, interests of, trying to get things out of people, making somebody's day, right? I always tell people it's good. Always have a smile on your face, right? Always, a smile goes a long way.
Well, you do. I don't ever see you frowning around the office, so.
So it's, regardless of what type of day, I'm a firm believer, whatever type of day you're having, you don't need to give that energy to that person you're talking to, right? So it's, yeah, to answer your question, it was more so, speaking to people, talking to people, learning from people, trying to be, that positive light for people. So I don't know if I.
Well, now you're in roofing, so so you were doing criminal justice.
Right, all right.
And then you wanted to shift from that.
Right, yep.
And then you were looking around, and you saw an ad posted for American Home Contractors, right?
Yep. So saw an ad posted, applied.
And what interested you about the ad, and what kind of, like, going from football to criminal justice to being on top of roofs physically, right. Like, you got the ability to be physical, but walking around roofs is completely different than running on a flat football field. Right. I know there is a little arch in the middle of the football field, right?
Yeah, but not definitely not like, getting on roofs for sure. Yeah. But it was, more so that, I at that time I didn't really know what I was getting like I said, when I got done with, I roofed a little bit, but it was more so, metal roofing, spray foaming, all that, not like the
When
type.
When did you do that?
In Nebraska.
Really?
I did it for about 8 months to a year.
And what was this? Summer jobs?
Yeah, commercial jobs, and we used to.
What company did you work for?
This company called Tilson.
Tilson.
It was a family-owned business.
Okay.
Right, small. They might have.
I didn't know that. So you got some roofing experience when you were out in Nebraska during the summer.
More so, more so commercial, more so metal roofs.
But what interested you to get into roofing from being in school? Just an ad?
You said being in school?
Yeah, you were in school and you were just.
No, I was out of school at that time.
Okay, so you were out of school. You were still in Nebraska.
I was still in Nebraska, still in Lincoln. This was after ball, right? I did that for a little bit, and so when I got here, I was kind of not. I mean, we do. We don't do commercial buildings, things like that. But it was similar in a way. So saw the ad online, and then I applied, and then once I applied, and once I got the hang of things and going out in the field every day and running appointments, it was more so being out in the field, but also engaging with people,
Hmm.
customers.
Yeah,
Kind of going back to what I just said. You know,
your customer
being
satisfaction levels are off the charts, Marcus.
so it was more so once, like I said, I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was more so once I got the feel and once okay, I like interacting with customers. Like I was telling y'all the other day, the guy was teaching me 57, teaching me about MMA. You know what I'm saying? I was talking to him for an hour, so it was more so listening because you can learn from everybody. You know what I mean? So it was more so, and once I, once I saw that, it made everything 10 times better, right? Because it can be somebody's husband. You can go to somebody's home. You're tuning up the roof. You come back down, talk to them, and they sometimes they might just need you at that moment to listen to them. Like you might have a customer where it's happened to me. Their husband just died. They're lonely. It was just them. Their kids are off to college, and they just they talk to you, let you know what's going on, and and just as you might not process that right then and there, but once you leave, it's like, man, maybe that lady needed me.
Hmm.
She needed that. Maybe
Yeah.
and I'm firm believer that God brings you people, perfect timing, right? Timing. God's timing is great. I'm a firm believer of that. I'm positive. I carry myself in a great. I'm for religious. Religion wise is. I'm firm believer of being there at the right moment, right time, right, and that's just one example of that. And yeah, man, you never know. You never know. When you can make somebody's day.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's probably what leads to great customer satisfaction. When
yeah,
people
man,
work with you, you're always smiling, you're always catering to their needs, you're always
you learn. You
a
can learn
lending
from.
ear.
You can learn from anybody. You can learn from anybody, and like I said, people may need you at a time that you're face to face with them. So, um, but yeah, and that's what maybe every single day, you never know what you're gonna come across, right?
Hmm.
And that's why you get up, you do your job, interact with people, and you might leave, you might come home like, wow, like I come home all the time, and I tell Angie like, wow, you're not gonna believe what I just learned from this guy, right? Because you learn from people all the time, right? Good or bad, regardless of what the situation is, it's a lesson or it might be a blessing, right? You always gotta learn from it. So
Now, do you think roofing and maybe the service industry in general is a good path for people that used to play sports? Like, are most people of that mindset that you have?
yes, yes and no. I think sports in general brings, I think it brings togetherness, right? Leadership, um, being likable because you're familiar with your team, right? You have to get along with your team, right? You have to, because if you don't, if your team don't, you and your team don't see eye to eye, things are not going, things not going to work, right? You might not be good, right? If your team doesn't see, and like I said, you don't have to personally like each other, but you have to work as a unit, right, to win games. And that's just sports in general. And I think that can for roofing or customer service, I think that's key because you know at the end of the day you're learning by that person, but also you're talking with that person. Same thing as you would do if you were in the locker room in a sense. So that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, so it's more so I think I think yes, but also no in a way because um, some people they don't like talking in front of people. You got introverts, extroverts, right? If they're not comfortable in that setting, if I just met you, right, and I'm an introvert, I might not feel comfortable opening up to you, which is okay. You know what I mean? So, but if you're a team, you've been around the team for a while, so you're comfortable with several different players on the team. So it just all, it's situational. It all depends, I would say. So that's why I said yes and no.
Well, what would you say about the customer base? When working with customers, would you say most people are very friendly and outgoing and willing to have a conversation, or, are most of them reserved? You have to open them up, kind of work through a process. Like, what would you say is the overall market sentiment?
Like, I'm gonna go back to what I said about 5 minutes ago. Just bringing. So for me is your energy and a smile, right? First impression. And then I always like to go off of what I know, which is sports, right? Majority of the time, when you go to somebody's house, you might see a Ravens flag. You might see he might have a Caps hat on. So it's more so for me is talking to the customer and filling them out, as in trying to being their friend, like taking what I'm there for out for a little for a second and just talk about
trying to relate to them. And you spend a lot of time doing that, right?
Hey, I mean, we're out in the field hours a day, so I try to do my best where I'm talking to a customer for a while, trying to get to know them, to make them feel comfortable with me, but also, not just feel comfortable with me of what I'm trying to do there, but also maybe, build that relationship with them. Somebody that, when I leave there, they might tell their husband, like, hey, I had a great guy come today, he came for this, but we talked about football, we talked about a restaurant he likes to go to, that we go to, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So just trying to bring that positive value to the customer. But first things first, definitely energy and a smile. That'll go a long way.
Well, like I said, you have the highest customer satisfaction levels, the most reviews. You work with folks. You let them know anything additional that's going on in their house. They trust you. They want to take your advice. They want to follow up on, anything that needs to be repaired, maintained, replaced, that you identify. So you're just an amazing, amazing person all around. The team loves you internally. The customers love you. These guys love you. Everybody loves Marcus.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I try to bring positivity wherever I'm at. Like I say, you never know who's going through something.
Yeah.
Right. You can be, might be going something. He might be going something. Just bringing that, that positive energy and trying to lighten somebody's day.
Absolutely.
Best that I can. So.
Now, bonus question: what is the most ridiculous thing you've seen out in the field?
Is this good for camera?
It can be inappropriate. We can edit it, but yeah, whatever.
If it's too
whatever.
crazy, I'll
be honest. Yeah. Be honest. What was the most ridiculous thing?
The most ridiculous. I'm trying to think of a couple. I would say I went up to an appointment, called the customer, let her know I'm 15 minutes away, knocked on her door, and the lady comes to the door with no T-shirt on. That was like, I don't know if I think she was it seemed like she was getting ready, like she was in a rush, maybe didn't realize what was occurring, like what, she didn't have a top on. And I was just like, man, I'm going to head back to my van real quick. I'll give you about 5 minutes. I'll come back and talk to you. And then after that, she said, I'm so sorry. I mean, she had a lot going on. I think she had, take her kids somewhere or had to pick her kids up for a doctor. I don't know what was going on, but she seemed like she was in a rush and didn't really know, what was going on. That she was missing. She was missing something for sure. But Yeah, man, I think that was one for top one for sure. Top one for sure. So, yeah.
Oh,
You
that's
see,
funny.
you see some crazy things. You'll be surprised. I mean, I'm pretty sure, if you ask any of the techs or anybody in the field, they'll tell you the same thing.
Everyone's got a story.
Yeah, everybody has a story for sure.
Everyone's got naked stories. That's for sure.
But yeah, that was number one for sure. That was number one for sure. So.
Cool, man. Well, I want to keep you. I know you got to get back to your dad, but thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. It's whenever you guys need me for something or whatever, just give me a shout and we'll try to make it work.
Will do, man.
Yeah. Dave, appreciate
Thanks again,
you.
Marcus.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. So, which is harder, 2 days in football camp or a full day on the roof? And it's one of those really hot days on the roof.
100% 2 days. The reason why I say that is, when you're on the roof, it's hot, right? I mean, regardless of, when you get down compared to, you're on, shingles where it's 10 times even hotter what it is on the ground. When you're in a 95-degree day in 2 days, right, you might be on the field for 12 plays at a time. No huddle. So when I mean by no huddle, I mean, look, I'm the quarterback. I'm throwing you the ball. You catch it. They're running back to the line of scrimmage to try to, run another play in a quickly manner where you're on defense. You got to huddle. You can't, you got to be lined up as they're about to run the next play, right? So you got to think of 95-degree weather. You might be on the field for 10 to 12 plays. I mean, so you're like,
what if it's 70 degrees and sunny on the football field compared to 95 or 98 degrees on the roof?
2 days, 100%.
2 days. So football's harder than roofing.
Even to answer the question, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Even if it's 50 degrees, like that nonstop, run that no huddle offense, running back to the huddle, running back to the huddle, trying to get their play in. You got to be aligned perfectly to execute the defensive play. So,
well, I got a quick question.
2 days.
What's worse, extreme heat on the roof or extreme cold?
Extreme cold.
Extreme cold.
Extreme cold. On the roof.
Yeah. So
when it's like 12 degrees and them fingers are numb, your toes are numb, you got to nail a shingle in, you know what I'm saying? And maybe the hammer hit your thumb, your index finger. I would say cold for sure.
Now, is that worse than football, or is football still more difficult, more challenging?
Football is more difficult and challenging because
It's a 12-degree day on the roof.
Because look, hear me out now. You're dealing with the same thing, right? When I was just talking about my fingers, like you go out for a game, your fingers, your toes might be cold. I mean, till you start getting warmed up, pads start popping, things like that. But I mean, still, if the offense is out there for 10 minutes and you've been on the sideline for 10 minutes, you got to go. But you're cold again.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
that's true.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry, Dave. I gotta say 2 days. I gotta say 2 days.
Can't break you on that roof.
Gotta say 2 days. So,
well, I remember the first times that you and I, were getting together and we're going through safety training with your harness.
Yep.
I remember you were wearing your harness incorrectly. But it was because you couldn't fit the harness around your thighs.
Yeah.
Right?
The harness was too small around my thighs.
Very muscular thighs.
And
being a football player.
It was sometimes it was forced. I told Chuck, I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's this might not be good for camera, but it's it's pinching me now. I can't. I don't know if I can do it too long. But anyway, we got a new harness for me. So
that's right. We got a jumbo.
Yeah, we got a bigger
harness.
one for me. Yep, for my thighs. But yep, I do remember that. That was funny. So.
Yeah, I think